the author of Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army, and his latest reporting on Blackwater can be seen online on thenation.com. Jeremy Scahill is over here. Jeremy, how are you, my friends? You are the guy who started all this about Blackwater. You had the book years ago. We had you on the show talking about it, and they're back in the news in a big way this week.
Blackwater is a mercenary force that was hired originally by the Bush administration to go into Afghanistan first in 2002 on covert CIA contracts.
But they existed before that.
They existed before that as a training company. The Obama administration continues to contract with Blackwater. The fact is that what we saw after 9/11 was this mercenary force run by Eric Prince, an avowed Christian supremacist, essentially embed itself in the U.S. national security apparatus. And beginning in 2002, was providing private soldiers for hire to the government, initially on covert CIA contracts. But now, for instance, Blackwater has a $100+ million contract in Afghanistan. They guard top U.S. officials there. They're still in Iraq, armed right now. And we understand they also are working covertly for the CIA as part of the drone bombing campaign.
How many people are in Iraq, for example, that are Blackwater personnel?
Well, in Iraq right now, you have 130,000 private contractors that work for 600 different corporations. Blackwater has been typically the tip of the spear of that operation.
So there are way more private security,
in
outsourced private security people than U.S. military.
In Afghanistan, Barack Obama...
But let's pause over that for a moment.
And why is it more, if it is, allegedly cost efficient? You have the Marines, the best fighting force in the world. Why? It must be, what, 10 times the cost of a Marine to have one of these people there?
You have, in fact... I mean,
what do they get paid,
right.
Blackwater?
So these are six-figure guys, six-figure salaries. At the peak of the
We pay our own soldiers shit, and we treat them like shit in many different ways.
Right.
But these guys are six figures.
Right. I mean, look, the Obama administration in the second quarter of this year increased the number of armed contractors in Afghanistan by 29%, in Iraq by 23%. There are 70,000 private contractors in Afghanistan right now and 48,000 U.S. troops.
Let me ask you a question.
That's change I can believe.
Are Blackwater troops, are they better fighters? Are they more dedicated to
They're usually ex-military, right? They're guys who are in the military.
You're guys that we spent millions of dollars training as U.S. Navy SEALs, Delta Force guys, Marines.
Right.
They leave the service. In some cases, these companies headhunt active duty soldiers.
They're recruited right out of the military.
Yeah, the slang in Iraq is going Blackwater. When you jump from the military over to the private sector, no matter what company you go for, they call it going Blackwater. So we've spent all this money to train them. They leave, they go work for Eric Prince's Christian supremacist fighting force to eliminate Muslims and destroy Islam globally, and then they bill taxpayers again for this killing that they're doing, and they're not held to the same standard as soldiers. The Bush administration made sure that they were immune from any prosecution. They were an armed wing of the administration, and unfortunately it continues under Obama.
When private contractors are killed, we don't even count them. So the scope of the wars is really unknown.
They're in a war zone. The U.S. military investigated the Nicer Square massacre. They were on the scene right after this shooting took place. They said that it was a crime scene, an unprovoked massacre on the part of Blackwater. There are 5 Blackwater guys that are going to face trial, finally. One already pled guilty to killing an innocent
So when I watch the news and they say 3 contractors were killed today, did they ever identify, does the media ever say 3 Blackwater soldiers were killed, or Hessians, or whatever you want to call them?
We don't always know.
Let's remember here also, though, that Blackwater, which has now been identified as a central participant in the CIA assassination program, hired senior Bush administration CIA officials to run Eric Prince's private CIA. Cofer Black, who ran the Counterterrorism Center on 9/11, the Hunt for Bin Laden, Blackwater employee. Robert Richer, former Deputy Director of Operations. Enrique Rick Prado. They have a private CIA working for the U.S. government and simultaneously working for foreign governments.
Let me get to the story.
Why are you still alive? Are you paranoid? No, I'm serious. I'm serious. I mean, it's an amazing book that you've written. I'm curious that, oh, that guy had another guy we did more with. Oh, he's dead. What happened? He had an accident. I mean, and here are the... Do you sort of, I mean, do you...
There are actually accusations.
Iraqi and Afghan people that are forced to face down against them when, I'm sorry, the U.S. Congress does nothing to stop it, and journalists have done nothing to hold the White House accountable now, Chuck, or under Bush. This has not been an issue, and yet it constitutes more than half of the fighting force in Afghanistan.
And Iraq right now... Oh, it's fine. I know. I represent everybody.
Yeah, Chuck.
No.
Yeah, Chuck. By the way, comedians have had no part. Comedians have played no role in any of this.
No, but Chuck, you called it political catnip to talk about the CIA and Cheney's role in this because it distracts from the important issues. This is a central issue, and you called it cable catnip.
Because what happens and what is it going to get turned into? A political food fight where you can't get anything done. Congress would not be able to get any prosecutions done. And worse yet, the prosecution that you would want to have, the prosecution
that would get done.
But the prosecution that you would like to see would end up, and if it gets, and you don't get it, and then you find out that it provides some immunity farther along, and you find out you can't try these folks?
But how can Secretary Clinton go to Kenya and say, well, we need to have accountability for past crimes there when we can't hold our own torturers accountable? And Obama says, let's look forward, not backward. You prevent future torture by prosecuting past acts of torture.
Okay, but let me...
It's not
for my water. I'm not saying it's not.
Two former Blackwater employees came forward... Right? And they have interesting, gossipy stuff about murder, child prostitution, wife swapping, and dollar blowjobs. Well, let's start with the dollar blowjob.
I got a phone call from a woman who worked at Blackwater a few years ago who told me that there was this wife swapping going on at Blackwater, and sure enough, now it shows up, and she's not the one who said this. Two former Blackwater employees said that there was a wife swapping ring going on at Eric Prince's North Carolina compound. But the very serious allegation that you're asking about is that at Blackwater's headquarters in Baghdad, they bring in prostitutes to service the Blackwater men, some of whom are underage girls. And the allegation is that Eric Prince, the owner of Blackwater, has actually gone there and is aware of the fact that they are using child prostitutes. This is according to two sworn affidavits from former Blackwater employees. And look, the U.S. uses slave labor across the board in Iraq. The U.S. Embassy was built in part on slave labor, that massive 80 football field-sized compound there. People say that Eric Prince views himself as a Christian crusader.
Yes, that's the really scary part, is that, when this 9/11 happened, Bush, in his infinite non-wisdom, used the word crusade, forgetting that Christian and Muslim tension has been going on for 1,000 years. But this is a real crusader.
Well, let me ask you something. I mean, Blackwater troops come in this side, American troops come in this side. Who has precedent? Who takes command? If the American commander says, no, we don't move any more forward than this, can Blackwater totally disregard the commander? And
they are not under the military chain of command. They literally are a paramilitary force that answers to one branch of government and is not held accountable by the other branches of government. I believe this is unconstitutional, the use of these forces.
Speaking of unconstitutional...